I gotta give you a heads up. This story has a really graphic and disturbing twist at the end, so just be advised. This is it, guys. The very last image of Skylar Neese alive. 16 years old, caught in the eerie glow of a security camera. You see her running across the grass, moving quick, and sliding straight into the back seat of a waiting car. Brake lights flash, and then she's gone. Now, pause for a second. Ask yourself, when a teenage girl climbs into a car in the middle of the night, is she running away from home? Or is she trusting the wrong person, someone who's about to lead her into the darkest chapter of her life? The next afternoon, silence was the first red flag. Usually, when Dave Neese came home from work, he'd hear music blasting from his daughter's room or the television playing in the background. But on July 6th, nothing. Just silence. He called out, "Sky?" No answer. Dave walked down the hall to her bedroom door, knocked gently, and said, "Sky, come on, it's late, time to get up." Still nothing. You know that sinking feeling when something just doesn't sit, right? That was starting to hit him hard. He opened the door. The room was empty. And then he noticed it, the window screen. It wasn't in place. It was propped up in the closet. Outside, a bench sat right beneath the window, a perfect step for climbing in or out. The realization was instant and brutal. Skylar had snuck out. But here's the thing, if she had snuck out and come back, why didn't she fix the window? Why leave the bench right there for everyone to see? That's when it hit him. She left that night, and she never came back. By 4 p.m., reality slammed into the Neese family. Skylar hadn't shown up for her Wendy's shift. She hadn't called in, she wasn't home. And for her parents, Dave and Mary, this wasn't just some teen spending the night at a friend's house. This was different. This was serious. Quick thing before we start, where are you watching from right now? What time is it there? What's the weather like? And tell me, what case do you want next? Leave it in the comments. I go through everyone. Make sure you're subscribed. Let's go. Police showed up, but the scene gave them nothing. No signs of a break-in, no signs of struggle. Just a 16-year-old girl who had chosen to climb out her own window and vanish into the night. On paper, it looks like a runaway. But let's be real, her parents knew better. They knew their daughter. And that one grainy video of her getting into that car, that was the moment everything changed. Because the question wasn't just where she went, it was who was behind the wheel and what happened after those taillights disappeared into the dark. To really understand what this case did to a family, to a whole community, you first got to understand who was lost. Skylar Neese wasn't just some name on a missing poster. She was the center of her parents' universe. Her dad, Dave, big guy, tough on the outside, but when it came to his daughter, total softy. He loved telling this story from when Skylar was just a little kid. One afternoon, she wanted him to sit down for a tea party. And you know what he did? He sat on this tiny pink chair, knees practically up to his chest, while Skylar, in her ballerina tutu, poured him tea from her plastic teapot. He drank it, smiled, told her it was the best he'd ever had. Here's the kicker later. When his wife Mary got home, Dave found out that tea wasn't from the sink. It was toilet water. That's the kind of bond they had, love and laughter, no matter what. And you know what? Dave didn't even care. That's how much that little girl owned his heart. By 16, that bright, funny little kid had grown into a straight-A student. She dreamed about becoming a criminal lawyer one day. She worked part-time at Wendy's, saving up for a car. And guys, listen to this. She hugged her parents and told them, "I love you," every single night before bed. That's rare. That's special. And it's the last thing she said before disappearing. And she wasn't alone in her teenage world. At the center of her social life were two girls. Sheila Eddy, her best friend, since they were 8 years old, and Rachel Schoaf. The three of them were inseparable. Go look at their social media back then, and you'll see it: constant selfies, goofy captions, inside jokes, best friends forever. To the outside world, it looked perfect. That's what made that surveillance video so haunting. Because the girl with the bright future and the shadowy figure climbing into that car, same person, same night. And here's where the story gets darker, guys. Because the very people Skylar trusted the most, the one smiling next to her in all those pictures, would soon become the center of the investigation. So, in those first days after Skylar vanished, it felt like the entire town of Morgantown was holding its breath. Flyers with her smiling face were on every telephone pole, every storefront window. People were praying, hoping, just doing whatever they could to bring her home. And right there, front and center, playing the part of the grieving best friends, were Sheila and Rachel. I want you to really picture this scene. They're at the Neese apartment constantly. They're hugging Skylar's heartbroken mom, Mary, crying with her, promising her that everything's going to be okay. Sheila, the girl who had been Skylar's best friend since they were 8, is literally walking the streets side by side with Skylar's dad, Dave, handing out those flyers. She's looking strangers in the eye and saying, "Please, have you seen our girl?" And then she'd go home, log on to Twitter, and perform for the whole world. She tweeted things like, "Skylar, I miss you more than anything. And please, just come home. We need you." Think about the sheer cold-blooded audacity. This wasn't just staying quiet. This was an active, sadistic performance. They weren't just hiding a crime. They were basking in the attention it brought them, building a monument of lies while Skylar's parents were living in a real-life hell. And what a hell it was. For Dave and Mary, every single day was a new nightmare. Imagine your only child is gone, and for weeks, the official police line is, "She's probably just a runaway. Teenagers do this. She'll turn up when she's out of money." It was infuriating. They knew their daughter. They knew she wouldn't just leave.
We're going to start with her father, Dave Neese. Thank you, sir, for being here. Our hearts go out to you. We know these past 2 months must have been horrific. Tell us about what your daughter did right before she disappeared. How did she get out of your home, and what did she do, according to you, with her friends?
Well, she came home from work, like you said, that evening, and she got home and walked in the door. She went over to her mother, hugged and kissed her mother, and she came over to me, kissed me, went to her bedroom, and that's the last we've seen of her.
And then I understand that she crawled out of her bedroom window that was spotted on surveillance. That's a ground floor bedroom window. Is that correct, Mr. Neese?
That is correct.
And then she went out with some friends. Now, I understand there may have been up to 3 girls, and they brought her back. What did those girls say about what they were doing, who they might have been hanging out with, and what your daughter's mood was?
The only thing they told us was that they just went riding around their local town here, and that Skylar was in a pretty good mood, they said, and she insisted to be dropped off at the end of the road, and they dropped her off at the end of the road, and that's the last anybody's seen of her.
Sir, I know this is difficult. We have put your daughter's face up. This is so crucial because anybody who has any information, we're urging them to call if you've seen this young lady anywhere. By the way, there have been 172 sightings, and law enforcement told us just a couple of minutes ago that none of them have panned out thus far. So we understand your panic and your heartache. There are cryptic tweets on Skylar's Twitter page before she disappeared that may offer clues as to what happened. In one, she writes, "Stress will be the death of me." She tweeted on July 4th. Now, 16-year-olds can be dramatic at times. It could be the stress over a fight with a friend, a relationship. Dave, do you have any idea why your daughter was stressed out? I was speaking to your wife earlier, and she said that she was kind of upset that all her friends had gone off for the 4th of July holiday, and that she was stuck because she had to work and do her job at the fast food joint.
That's the only stress I can think she might have been under. She wasn't under any stress at home that we knew of for any reason, and she did put that on her Twitter page, and I still to this day have no clue what she meant by that. I think it was the fact that she had to work over the 4th of July holiday, and that she kind of got stuck at home, and all her friends were out camping and doing whatever else.
So they took matters into their own hands, organizing search parties, driving down dark country roads, screaming her name into the woods, hoping for an answer that would never come. But the case was stalling. Weeks turned into months. That grainy surveillance video of the car was a total dead end. Leads dried up, and the hope that once fueled the town began to fade into a grim acceptance. The case was going cold. But here's the thing about secrets buried in the digital age, they never really die. With the case hitting a goddamn brick wall, the grainy video leading to a big fat zero, and hope fading fast, one fed-up detective decided to go back to square one. He figured if Skylar couldn't speak, maybe her ghost in the machine could. He started digging into the one place a 16-year-old girl truly lives and breathes, her social media. He's scrolling through months of teenage noise song lyrics, inside jokes, goofy selfies, and then, bam, he finds it. Buried between all the usual high school chatter were these little digital breadcrumbs, red flags popping up on the screen, cryptic tweets about betrayal, about feeling iced out by the very people she trusted most. And then, the one that hit like a heavyweight's punch to the gut, posted just days before she vanished. You really can't trust anyone anymore. Now, think about that. For a cop drowning in a dead-end case, that ain't just teen angst. That's a motive. That's a goddamn roadmap pointing to a specific destination. The entire investigation pivoted on a dime. The focus snapped from a runaway theory directly onto the two people at the dead center of Skylar's universe, Sheila and Rachel. They brought them in again, separated them, classic playbook pressure tactic, and this is where you see the real difference between a sociopath and someone with a conscience. Sheila, man, she was cold as ice. She'd sit there, stare right back at the detectives with these dead, shark-like eyes, and her story never wavered. Not a single detail. It was so chillingly perfect. It was obvious it was a lie. But Rachel, a whole different story. Every time they put her in that hot seat, she seemed to physically shrink. She was a wreck. Couldn't make eye contact, her eyes glued to the scuffed-up floor, hands trembling. You could literally see the secret was a cancer, eating her alive from the inside out, corroding her soul. The detectives knew it. They saw the crack in the armor. They knew one of them was going to break, was going to spill her guts. It was just a matter of when. Winter rolled in. 6 long, brutal months had passed. Morgantown was buried under a thick blanket of snow, and so was any hope of finding Skylar alive. But the guilt, the pressure, the constant gnawing fear, it was a ticking time bomb inside Rachel Schoaf. And on December 28th, that bomb finally went off. It wasn't just a bad day. It was a full-blown psychotic break. She was reportedly screaming, running through her neighborhood, getting violent with her own family. She was completely off the rails. It got so bad her own mother had to call 911, telling the dispatcher she couldn't control her anymore. The evil they had unleashed on that dirt road had finally boomeranged and was consuming one of its creators. She was taken to a psychiatric hospital. The secret was finally out of its cage and clawing its way into the light. And then, just a few days later, on January 3rd, 2013, the phone rang at the police station. It was a lawyer. And he said the 6 words they had been waiting half a year to hear. Rachel Schoaf is ready to talk. She was ready to confess. And she was ready to lead them straight to Skylar. The confession didn't happen in some sterile police interrogation room. Hell no. It started on a freezing back road in Pennsylvania, just across the state line. Rachel Schoaf, sitting in the back of a cruiser, stone-faced, calm, almost detached, just pointed a finger toward a desolate patch of woods. She's in there. Later, under the harsh fluorescent lights at the station, Rachel laid it all out. And this is the part that'll make your stomach turn. This wasn't some spontaneous fight gone wrong. This was a goddamn execution. She admitted that she and Sheila had pressured Skylar to sneak out that night. Skylar, already hurt and pissed off because she knew they'd been treating her like dirt, didn't want to go. But they worked on her, pushed and pushed until she finally gave in. The moment she slid into that car, the trap was set. Both girls already had knives hidden in their hoodies. They drove out to that remote spot, a place they knew would be dead quiet. For a minute, it probably looked like any other teenage hangout, laughing, bullshitting, the 3 of them. Then, Sheila sprung the trap, said she forgot her lighter in the car, asked Skylar to go back and get it. Skylar, ever the good friend, turned her back, and that was her last mistake. In that moment, according to Rachel, they locked eyes and counted 1, 2, 3. On 3, they plunged their knives into their best friend. Skylar's final words, choked out as she bled on the cold ground, weren't a plea or a curse. They were a single, soul-crushing question. Why? They never gave her an answer. Afterwards, they tried to bury her, fumbling with the shovels and bleach they'd brought. But the frozen ground was too hard, so they just left her. Covered her with some branches and drove home like nothing happened. So, when the detectives finally got to ask the question that had haunted Skylar's parents in this entire town for 6 months, is the same question Skylar asked with her last breath, the answer they got back was colder than the Pennsylvania dirt. And they found her in. It wasn't some grand dramatic motive. No secret affair, no blackmail, no petty fight over a boy. Rachel looked at them, her voice flat and utterly devoid of human emotion, and said, "We just didn't want to be friends with her anymore." Now guys, I want you to really stop and let that sink in. This is the part that breaks your brain. How does "we're not friends anymore" escalate to premeditated murder? It doesn't happen overnight. This was a slow burn process of dehumanization, a cancer that grew in their friendship for months. See, to understand the why, you have to understand the power dynamic in their little trio. Sheila Eddy was the undisputed queen bee, the alpha. She was charismatic, controlling, and she called all the shots. Rachel Schoaf was her loyal lieutenant, the follower who basked in Sheila's popularity and would do anything to stay in her inner circle. And Skylar had a backbone. She had her own mind. She had a strong moral compass and a close, loving family she wasn't ashamed of. In the beginning, that probably didn't matter. But as Sheila's influence over Rachel grew, Skylar's independence started to look like a threat. She wasn't falling in line. She was the one who might say, "Hey, maybe that's not a good idea." Or, "No, I'm not lying to my parents about that." For a control freak like Sheila, that's a problem. The campaign to push her out started subtly, with the kind of cruel, petty tactics teenage girls have perfected into an art form. It was death by 1,000 cuts. They'd show up to school in matching outfits they forgot to tell Skylar about. They'd post group selfies where Skylar was conveniently half hidden in the back. They'd whisper inside jokes right in front of her, making sure she knew she was on the outside, looking in. Each one of these acts, on its own, seems like just mean girl drama. But what they were actually doing was systematically erasing her humanity in their own minds. She stopped being Skylar, their friend. She became an it, an obstacle, an inconvenience that was ruining their perfect little duo. There's also a darker, more concrete theory that circulated. Some friends said that Skylar had accidentally overheard a conversation that revealed Sheila and Rachel were in a romantic relationship. In a small conservative town like Morgantown, that was a secret they would do anything to protect. Did Skylar threaten to expose them? Probably not. She was their friend. But in their paranoid, toxic world, the risk that she could was enough. She knew their secret, and therefore she held power over them. And for Sheila, nobody was allowed to have power over her. So when you put it all together, the motive becomes clearer and 100 times more disturbing. It wasn't that they just didn't want to be friends. It was that, in their minds, she knew too much, she wouldn't bend to their will, and she was standing in the way of the exclusive bond they had formed. And in the twisted, narcissistic world of Sheila Eddy, if you can't control someone, and you can't just break up with them like a normal person, you delete them. You erase the problem. Permanently. And that's what makes this crime so uniquely chilling. It wasn't a crime of passion, born from a moment of rage. It was a cold, calculated crime of convenience. They got rid of their best friend with the same casual cruelty that someone might use to get rid of an old piece of furniture they no longer like. Once Rachel sang, the whole damn house of cards that Sheila Eddy had built came crashing down. And her arrest? Man, it was as surreal and chilling as the crime itself. Picture this. Sheila is sitting in a Cracker Barrel, a brightly lit, wholesome as hell family restaurant, shoveling down pancakes with her mom. There's no dramatic SWAT raid, no sirens. 2 plainclothes cops just quietly walk up to her table, lean in, and tell her she's under arrest for the murder of Skylar Neese. And her reaction, according to the officers, there was none. 0. No tears, no denial, not even a flicker of surprise. Just a cold, detached emptiness. It was like they just told her the restaurant was out of sweet tea. That absolute void of a human reaction shook even the most hardened cops in the room. From there, the justice system took over, and the courtroom became a stage for 2 completely different faces of evil. On one side, you had Rachel Schoaf, the one who broke. In court, she was the poster child for remorse, shaking, crying, delivering a prepared apology straight to Skylar's parents. Was it legit, or was it a desperate Hail Mary play to save her own skin? Only she knows. But because she cooperated, because she led them to Skylar's body, she cut a deal. She pled guilty to second-degree murder and got 30 years in prison with her first shot at parole in 2023. And then there was Sheila. If Rachel was a picture of remorse, Sheila was a goddamn portrait of unblinking, remorseless evil. She showed up to her hearings with an attitude. Reporters said she was smirking, whispering jokes to her lawyer, acting like the whole thing was a boring inconvenience. The prosecution laid out how this was a cold, calculated execution, emphasizing the kill kit they had brought with them: knives, bleach, shovels. This wasn't a mistake, it was a mission. And through it all, there were no tears from Sheila. No apology, nothing. She eventually entered a last-minute guilty plea to first-degree murder to dodge a trial, landing her a life sentence. But even that came with a catch. The possibility of parole in just 15 years, coming up in 2028. In one of the most powerful moments of the entire case, Skylar's father, Dave, got to confront Rachel in court. His voice wasn't just sad, it was razor sharp with 6 months of grief that had hardened into pure, righteous rage. He looked her dead in the eye and said the only reason she felt remorse was because she got caught. But the final, venomous twist of the knife didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened online. Just days after the cops had officially ID'd Skylar's remains, but before Sheila was cuffed, she went on Twitter. With the whole town mourning, she posted one last, unbelievably cruel message. A brag disguised as a cryptic tweet. She wrote, "We really did go on 3. Let that sink in. She wasn't just a killer, she was proud of it." She took a detail from the most horrific moment of her best friend's life, the countdown, to stabbing her and turned it into a trophy, a sick inside joke for the whole world to see. That single tweet erased any last shred of doubt. This wasn't just a friendship gone wrong. This was the work of a monster.
As we told you last week, that Rachel Schoaf, one of Skylar Neese's killers, was up for her first parole hearing today. Riley Holsinger has been covering that story all day and tells us what the parole board decided and brings us the reaction of some of Neese's family members.
With Rachel Schoaf up for her first parole hearing today, Skylar Neese's family waited right here in anticipation and seeing if one of Skylar's killers would be set free.
At this time, the board does not grant you parole at this time.
The words that Neese's family was hoping to hear.
Parole denied. And she doesn't deserve parole. She never did deserve her parole. She's a rat that got a deal.
Schoaf said in the hearing that she wouldn't necessarily deserve parole because of her actions. She apologized to Neese's family and blamed being immature and young at the time.
In my mind, there's no words to describe the horrific act that the inmate committed against Skylar. No matter what she says now, that she was young and she didn't know better, I'm sorry. 5 and 10-year-olds know not to commit murder.
According to the West Virginia Department of Corrections, Schoaf is projected to be released from Lakin Correctional Center in April of 2028. While Sheila Eddy was sentenced to life in prison, her first parole hearing is set for May of 2028.
We still got one more to go, and it's coming up soon, and we'll be here for that too.
We'll have more coverage on the parole hearing coming up tonight at 5:30 and 6, but for now, reporting in Monongalia County, Riley Holsinger, 12 News.